Sources telling CNN the Trump administration is expected to brief top lawmakers on Iran this afternoon and update the full Congress tomorrow. And many Democrats, some Republicans, they're angry that President Trump launched this attack on Iran without congressional approval. The House and Senate are expected to vote this week on efforts to curb President Trump's war powers. Let's talk about this now with Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick. He's a Republican. He's a member of the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. He's also a veteran who served combat tours, including in Afghanistan during his 20-year military career. Congressman, thanks for being with us. And, first off, are you clear here on the objective? Can you give us the objective in a nutshell?
Sure, I can. I mean, if you look at what Iran's done over the last several decades, killed hundreds of Americans through proxy Hezbollah and other groups with Iranian weapons, what they've done to destabilize that region, what they have now, which is the development of nuclear arms. We know they had about enough enriched uranium to supply for 2 nuclear weapons. They've talked about wiping the United States off the face of the earth, Israel off the face of the earth. This is a country that talked about it openly as the Great Satan. And that's extremely alarming to us as a nation when you have a country that's already proven that they'll kill Americans and they could do it ad nauseum if they have nuclear means to do so, even if it's just a dirty bomb. Imagine what a dirty bomb would do in downtown Atlanta to American conditions, let alone a nuclear arm.
So is regime change, as you see it, the objective here?
Absolutely. To me it is. And I know people are saying we're not in the business of regime change. But if you have a country that not only kills tens of thousands of their own people, jails another tens of thousands that they intend to kill, that has destabilized an entire region, but reaching out to our enemies here in the Western Hemisphere, who have said they're going to annihilate Americans, who have openly tried to kill Americans, and now they're seeking nuclear weapons. That is a regime that I can't see anything being worse than that. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to put in a proxy government. It doesn't mean that we're going to do something like put boots on the ground necessarily. I don't think that's going to happen. But at least give those people the ability to rise up and not be killed in the tens of thousands. It's a 90 million man country. If they rise up and resupply, I expect what's going to probably happen is somebody's going to take the reins, either a military leader or somebody who can take the reins, set up a democratic election process. Maybe it'll be legitimate, maybe it won't be, but it certainly won't be something worse than what we have right now, that's for sure.
So to you, it's a regime change operation. Hegseth today said this is not a so-called regime change war. But you look at the strike, and obviously it's a decapitation strike. I guess the question is Iran's a bit like a hydra. So what's going to happen now that the Ayatollah is gone? And we're going to watch for that. But is it possible that you do not get regime change, that you actually just get a different face from the same regime and the U.S. ends up dealing with them?
Yeah, anything's possible. But if you have a country that doesn't have the access to nuclear enrichment facilities, that doesn't have the weaponry, doesn't have the facilities to produce weapons, doesn't have a navy, doesn't have the ability to mine the Straits of Hormuz, that's a much better improvement from what we have right now.
So the president told CNN's Jake Tapper today that the big wave is yet to come. So at this point in time, 4 American service members have been killed, 18 have been seriously wounded. At what point should Congress be dictating the scope of this war, or, at least be involved in some way other than just getting briefed?
We will get briefed, but quite frankly, there's never been a war that's been executed by Congress. We do have an approval process on declaring war, but if you actually look at the way that we execute war, we have a commander-in-chief. We have a secretary of war. We have the individual sync commanders. Congress would be a horrible way to run any war. As a matter of fact, if you look at the worst run wars, it's when you have somebody at the top that's fighting a political war rather than a military war. I hope we're past that. I hope we learned our lumps from times we did that in Afghanistan, when we did it in Iraq, when we did it in Vietnam. Whenever we get politicians overly involved, it doesn't go well for us. I hope we do much better this time.
Do you think there's a role for Congress in this, though?
Of course. I think Congress has to be behind this. Ultimately, you get to sort us out, see who actually believes in this mission and who doesn't. If we vote on it, that's fine, but the president has 90 days to do what he's going to do. I think it's going to destabilize that government tremendously. I think it'll allow the people to rise up against them, hopefully. If not, once again, they'll have much fewer capabilities to harm the people in that region, to supply Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas with money to destabilize the central government of Gaza, to come after us and the Israelis. I think this is going to be a very positive overall. It isolates Venezuela even that much more. I think Cuba's next, quite frankly. When you look at their support and the regime that they've had over their people, that horrible regime, I hope they also get toppled. I'm not saying by force, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying this is going to be good for the entire world when it comes to world peace.
But certainly Americans look at this region and they know that the U.S. has a history of not always seeing around corners, right? And not always knowing the sort of second and third order issues that regime change in the Middle East may cause. What unintended consequences are concerning you right now?
Actually, I'm very encouraged. When I look at the Saudi Arabians, when I looked at them in the 90s, when I was stationed over there in a couple of Persian Gulf tours, they weren't that friendly. They had a lot of problems. About half the people that went after our Twin Towers were from Saudi Arabia. Poverty basically results in terrorism. They've done a much better job of becoming moderate. They actually are the largest investors by percentage of GDP into their military at about 7%. The only country higher than that is Russia at 9%. They basically will become a strong ally. I hope they join the Abraham Accords. They're willing to use force against Iran and its forces. If you look at the uniting factor of the Middle East against Iran, I think Iran made a major miscalculation by attacking the countries around them. I think this will prove to be something that unites us rather than divides us, ultimately leading to more peace, safer America, safer Middle East overall.
Congressman Rich McCormick, thank you so much for being with us on a